Happy tax day, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Happy tax day.
Oh God,
Happy.
I only did mine yesterday, last night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. or something like that.
I
All right.
I did mine on Friday night while my clients were out enjoying their Friday, and I sat on the couch with their dog and did my taxes.
All right. Oh, well, it's at least it's done.
Right?
I'm still like very grudgeful that like so you want a money from like a person who was like 10 months unemployed, but hey, you know.
Right.
Anyhow, hi Dolores, hi Michelle, hi Kay. Thank you so much for tuning in.
We
Uh,
have quite the show for you guys today. I'm actually very excited to dig into the different topics that we're going to get into.
Definitely, and I'm actually very, very personally very excited to hear what you have to say, Eric, because it involves a lot of San Francisco politics. So, yep.
Before we get started, I just wanted to make a quick shout out. We are just coming off of a holiday weekend. This was the first year that I believe we had a trifecta: Passover,
Mm.
um, Easter, and Ramadan all happened on the same weekend. So I want to not only um, pay respects to the individual communities and to everyone who celebrated, but I also feel an obligation to shout out all the service workers.
Mm.
I wear many different hats, but ultimately, what I've really been a lot for a large part of my life as an Uber driver, delivery person, a pet care provider. I've been a
Mm.
service worker, and I would not have made it this weekend without my Lyft drivers,
Mm.
um, without all of the people who came together to make sure that you and your family could have an enjoyable weekend. So tip your service workers and remember to thank them is the one little thing that I'd like to say before we get started.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It's so true that yeah, I'm guilty of like okay, so I feel like I'm not a religious person, but I know that religious holidays are very important for people with families because they get together, like Easter dinner, whatever, Christmas dinner, So and Thanksgiving too, and I just feel like whatever the opinions that they have, I mean that some people have about holidays, I feel like they should like everyone should have day off. I feel like or at least like a shortened work day because it's important for people to get together with their families and do the holidays. So I'm kind of guilty of like going to the supermarket yesterday though because I needed something, but it hit me that oh wow, these people working today, and that's like taking them away from their families. So yeah.
And that's just why I wanted to make the quick little shout out because coming from a religious background and a religious childhood, Easter was one of those you very much do eat the service with the family, mass or service, and then you go to lunch or dinner immediately afterwards. This was
Mm.
one of the first um, Easters where I was just by myself working, and I was shocked by how much of the city was open, just like you mentioned, like any other day.
Mm.
Um, and again, I wanted to make people mindful that these people are working and they're not home with their families. So
Mm.
um, anyway,
Yeah, thank you.
especially as things are getting open back up and things are coming back full force is the other point. Anyway,
Mm.
let's get into the news.
Okay, so oh yes, take it, Eric. Take it away.
Well, okay, so I'll be honest, I haven't taken the time to just really in depth do my proper research and do my due diligence as far as the entire redistricting fiasco. I've been just insanely busy with work,
Mm.
which is why I have largely stayed silent about this. And the reason why I wanted to include this today is because it would then force me to look into this a little bit. And many, many, many grassroots groups here in San Francisco have been doing the work of showing up to City Hall. And I'll be honest, it's really almost heartbreaking that I've missed some of these actions and some of these rallies and demonstrations. I'm talking some of these groups have been attending these meetings that sometimes go on until like 2, 3, 4 a.m.
Mm,
Before I get started, I really just want to say thank you to all of the community leaders, to all of the communities that are still rallying to make sure that we do right by our residents, that we do right by our values as the city of St. Francis, the sanctuary city where
mm,
so many immigrants got their start. I just wanted to make that point. But basically, what is going on? So it's time for redistricting. And this is just one of the crowds that showed up. I guess I don't know who if I recognize too many. There's a couple of people I recognize, but I'm not going to shout them out. But who I do know was Jupiter Praza of the transgender district. Chesa showed up.
mm,
Members of Shahid's campaign showed up. Basically, what is going on is there's a panel, a third of which is, so there's 3 members who are appointed by the mayor, 3 members who are appointed by the board of supervisors, 3 members who are appointed by the board of elections. And never in my life have I ever seen, and I guess maybe I am not quite 30 years old yet, and I haven't been around for the 10-year cycle
mm,
where it's something that I've really paid too much attention to. That could be a part of this, but I've just never seen San Francisco divided up like a cake before, like
mm,
where all these little special interest groups are trying to make sure that they get their piece of the cake. And I
mm,
will be completely honest, I'm an emotional person and I don't hide it. A
mm,
huge part of this and why I haven't been so vocal and open about this is because it's heartbreaking and I can just feel myself getting emotional right now.
mm,
Like these are not this is not like business. This is not like, you guys are dividing up neighborhoods to serve. Like you are breaking up communities, people.
mm,
These are people's lives. These are people's the original district map that they wanted to push through cut the transgender district, dude. Like you're telling me the transgender district, the only one in the world
mhm,
where
mhm.
people who are transgender, like my brother here, where they feel that they can express themselves and where they have a safe space, 10 blocks designed, they cut
Yeah,
through that.
that is so insane. I did not even know that. That doesn't even make sense.
To me, I think like the immediate step, I know that there's a map out there that's still a little bit controversial, but it's a lot better than the one that they had proposed, which in
Mm,
addition to slicing through the transgender district, also sliced through Potrero Hill and divided Potrero Hill from Bayview Hunters Point, which, as you know, those are both historically communities of color.
mm,
It didn't affect where I grew up too much, which is historically a neighborhood that, pardon my French, they really fucked with, the Mission and Outer
mm,
Mission. But there
mhm,
were also, if I'm not mistaken, there were borders of like the inner Richmond and the outer Sunset. Those are two heavily residential populations. But
mm,
the neighborhood right next, and it'd be great if we could have a map, but the neighborhood right next to them, right along the cliff line, that's Sea Cliff, one of the wealthiest communities, which as you extend south then becomes, Presidio Heights, Pacific Heights, and all
mm,
that rich
mm,
neighborhood. And it's disgusting to see how they've like carved out little chunks to make it to make sure that it's in this neighborhood. But what they're really doing is that they're diluting people's
mhm.
voices, they're
Right,
diluting
right.
renters' voices, they're
Mm,
dividing communities so that and all so much of this comes down to dividing up communities of color to dilute the
right.
minority voice and the minority vote, which
That
is
is
like
so fucked up.
it's not okay. And again, this is something we could talk about for like for the rest of the show. So I don't want to get too involved. And I also like I'm sorry, like this is I don't want to There's also a part of this where I encourage people to do their own research and to go look up, because a huge part of the main meat of the media fiasco that we have here is that
Mm,
people take everything that comes out of the moderator's words at face value. And everybody always has their bias. I will admit mine. So don't just take my word for it. Get involved and do your own research, become informed.
mm,
But yeah, that's basically what's going on with the redistricting. And what's really what was really particularly interesting about all of this is that, okay, so Friday was 415 Day, which that's the date San Francisco was historically incorporated
mm,
as a city,
mm,
back in 1870, 1850. And then today, which I am so sad I did not make it for, was the 112th, I believe, if my math isn't
mm,
wrong.
mm.
It's the 116th, maybe, anniversary of the 1906 earthquake, the Great Earthquake and
Right,
Fires.
right. Yeah.
Um, and then, for those who celebrate, a little holiday known as 420 is coming up also. But, very San Franciscan. And it's all happening like right during this time that
Mm,
we
mm.
would otherwise, I don't know, be celebrating and have a lot of city pride. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing about San Francisco, though. There are people like you who are like so, proud of being, San Franciscan, and which is very, very endearing to me because I don't really, well, I don't, not like really, I don't have a relationship like that with my hometown. I really actually, I had to like put the Pacific Ocean between us. Me and my hometown are just like really, I'm just like I just want to be away from it, like as far as possible. And but anyway, but um, Rose, who is running for Congress in California District One. She was actually commenting the other day on Twitter that like San Francisco has been ruined by politics, or by um industry, I guess, tech industry. But yes, it's true, but I just do think that I feel like I'm not even like I'm not like you. I wasn't born there, but I just spent time there for 6 years, and I fell in love with it, and it's so dear to me that I feel like San Francisco to me, I almost look at it as a living organism. It's just a living city, and there's so endearing about the city. Yeah. So even though there are problems in the city right now, I feel like you're right. It aged like fine wine, as you said on Twitter the other day. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the narrative that people push about San Francisco, I mean, I'm always going to feel some type of way as somebody who grew up here. But like you said, it tends to highlight a lot of the negative parts. And when you purely focus on that, it removes the responsibility, not only the responsibility to become something better and to strive to achieve um, what we set out to do historically, but we kind of we move, doing that. We don't keep our eye on remembering what we have done, what
Mhm.
historically, and again, what the city is known for. One of my favorite statements is that movements began on our streets that have spread across the entire country and changed the course of history.
Right, right.
And that spirit and that fire is still here in San Francisco. And I think that we should do right by it.
Mm, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So I hope that, and the thing is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the latest round of maps, like I said, it is still not um, without controversy, But if I'm not mistaken, they did find a way to keep the transgender district together, and they did find a
Mm,
way to keep Potrero Hill and Bayview Hunters Point together. It is
that's
still an
good.
ongoing fight, but at least
Mm,
those two, which were of highest concern to me.
mm, mm. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So before we go on to next topic, let's just look at some comments because people have been commenting. So Kay commented, "We are still fighting for fair maps here in Ohio." Yeah, I think a lot of places it's the same things are happening. They are doing that. Jimmy said they are doing that down south in California too. My whole mountain community is connected to rich Rancho Cucamonga. Mm. Yeah, it's completely unfair. Yeah, again, it's like just like Eric said, it's like trying to dilute the voice of minority and or poor community by dividing them up, right? So,
And what one of the people said during public comment here is that, again, this isn't just, you know, neighborhoods that you're chopping up. This is people's lives and communities, but you're setting that for 10 years.
mm,
For 10
mm,
years, you're kind of setting the tone for that. And that's just, you have to do that with care and precision.
mm, mm, right. Yeah, Kay says unfair all over the country as far as I can tell. And GOP does more gerrymandering, but Dems do their fair share as well.
Yeah.
Right, another way of rigging the system. Exactly. So, Jimmy, I live in the red district. It's definitely drawn to benefit them. Hmm. All right. Okay. So, yes, book bans. Um, I don't want to say put it this way,
You
but
should.
this was like my favorite subject of the day. So it's like when I picked up the news, I was just like, okay, so people, I am not saying that I'm in favor of book bans. It's just that later on we're gonna talk about how people are fighting back, and I just really loved reading about how people are fighting back. Because we should. Um, it's actually scary, right, Eric? I mean, what's happening?
And that's why I was like, laughing really isn't the right emotion, but yeah, guys, like I was telling Sucre before the program, it is downright terrifying how we are sliding into authoritarianism, and we'll talk more about this, but this is happening under a quote unquote blue administration, right? Like, just imagine what's happening when the federal government is completely conservative.
Which I think is about to
Is
happen.
about to, right,
Sorry about
right,
that. Sorry,
right,
guys, but
right
I'm not
around the corner.
optimistic about this year's election. I don't
Yeah.
think it's yeah. So yeah, book bans. Let's just look at some of the books that it's being banned. So I was shocked by this. Like Mouse, I mean, I spent my youth reading that. It's such a great um comic. I mean, it's not only entertaining, but it's just really it's very educational. It's about Holocaust. As you can see, but
So is Mouse, because I've read portions of it. Is it a series? Is it like one book? Has he produced like many different
I believe there are more volumes than one. I think.
oh, and
Yeah,
is it one story, one necessarily coherent story, or is it just
I
several
think so. Yeah,
tales?
yeah. I
Okay.
think it's one story, but yeah. So I was like really shocked that I mean, okay, but I guess I shouldn't be shocked. I was telling Eric, wow, these people who are banning these books, really like did not try to hide their agenda, right? Because like it's about race, it's about sex, it's about gender, right? So um yeah, so I'm just gonna read a little bit. So this is actually this article that we quoted from is Freedom Socialist Party's own publication, Freedom Socialist News, I think. So yeah, um, so outrage erupted when a Tennessee school district removed from its library Art Spiegelman's Mouse: A Survivor's Tale, the Pulitzer-winning graphic novel about the Holocaust. It was but one instance of escalating calls to prohibit certain writings. In December 2021, a San Antonio K-12 district pulled 400 volumes after a Texas legislator demanded a review of 850 objectionable titles.
850.
So, yeah, the following month, Southern pastor and QAnon supporter Greg Locke staged a bonfire burning of the most banned writing in America, Harry Potter. The site was horrifyingly reminiscent of Nazi acts in 1933 Germany.
I took a look through the comments, and it's funny. Um, I've read Harry Potter and the New Jim Crow. I haven't. I hate to admit this. I haven't read Beloved, and I've only read Pieces of Mouse. But my memory of seeing Harry Potter is my parents did not let me read Harry Potter. I was very religious.
Really? Oh my
No,
god!
no, oh no, they were very religious, and
Oh
yeah.
wow!
So I feel like I'm in high school. So I was in elementary school. I think I was in the 3rd grade, and I was like sneaking away my Harry Potter because I had to read Harry Potter. Everybody else was.
Mm.
And I had it in my I just remember I was in the living room getting ready for school, and I heard like this like yell from the kitchen, and my mom, like, she was devastated because she
Oh
found
no!
it. She's like, "What is this?" She was cleaning my backpack, and she found the Harry Potter book.
Like you were reading a porn.
Right. She was like, "What?" And back then my name was Abraham. And she was like, "What is this, Abraham?" And it was like I broke my mom's heart reading Harry
Mhm.
Potter. And I just remember like running in I don't even remember what I did, but that was my memory with Harry Potter.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess what the point I wanted to make is that, like Jimmy, there were certain communities that like Pokemon. I wasn't allowed to play with Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, pocket monsters. That was
Oh wow.
all of the
Huh.
devil. Oh yeah. Oh
Wow. That's
yeah.
like such a different reality. But yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, so I'm not, as everyone probably knows, like I'm not really excited about J.K. Rowling's personal politics, but I mean, Harry Potter is it's a good book, respectable book, and yeah. So, and I see no reason, of course, whatsoever to ban these books. So, it just baffles my mind. But um, yeah, let's see. Oh, okay. Well, this is the redistricting. Okay. So, religious groups a few years back were trying to get Texas textbook
Oh my
companies to
god.
remove dinosaurs. Oh my god. Oh wow. Oh, that's
And
insane.
and the
Oh my
thing
god.
is that what's the common thread here? These people are quite literally trying to erase chunks of history, right? Here we
Mm,
have the Holocaust, which wasn't even an American event. Um, but it wasn't very talked about in my own history education, which is interesting because even the bit that it was talked about was more than the entirety we did on slavery,
mm,
which is maybe a little touching about on these last two. My biggest takeaway from the new Jim Crow,
mm,
and it's funny because a friend of mine had this same takeaway who I talked about, who actually, I guess it's who actually recommended the book to me, was the way that our government and the way how our society has evolved, if you can call it that, has really pitted not minority communities, but poor communities against each other. And a pivotal part in this whole mess we have with mass incarceration and with our incredibly racist society
mm,
is the disenfranchisement felt by the poor white people in the South when when black people then started to get rights, because then it was like, well, then what do we have on black people? What makes us superior if all of a sudden it's no longer the color of our skin? At least we had that.
mm,
Anyway, it's just like I said, it's just very interesting. And what is the narrative that they are trying to exclude here by banning these books? What's the
Mm.
common thread through all of these? And it all does beg the question: if these are the books that they're trying to ban, these are the ones you should absolutely go out and be
Oh yeah,
reading.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
the other point.
That's why
Is the
though,
other
it's
point.
encouraging like some bookstores making special like banned book section, right? And
I
they're like
love,
selling like
yeah,
hotcakes, so that's encouraging.
I
People
love
should
what the New
absolutely
York.
go out and like seek these books. By the way, like I was like talking about this book to Eric the other day, but
Oh yes.
this is essential reading if you're into any women of color literature. I This was like required reading from my college years, and this changed my life. Yeah, it's a very, yeah, I recommend it. This bridge called My Back, edited by Sherry Moraga and Gloria Anzaldua, two Chicana women.
I'm
So
excited to read it.
yeah, I'm going to gift it to you, so you can't buy it. But anyway, so yeah, Jimmy is saying that like she grew up. Yeah, I lived Eric's life. So I guess let's see. And Michelle, my mom wouldn't let me read Portnoy's Complaint. I've never read that actually, but I should read it now. My mom let me read Stephen King books back in the day. I don't remember any books being banned from school or the public library. Let's see. Again, Jimmy. Harry Potter is my lifestyle now, thanks to my strict parents. Yeah, uh, the way to teach your kids, I
But
guess.
okay, here's the thing about Harry Potter. Again, I have my differences with J.K. Rowling as far
Mm,
as her, some of her social and political views, but I just remember when Harry Potter came out, maybe a couple years after, and
yeah.
it took my elementary school by storm. And I
Mm,
remember being in, like I said, the second or third grade, sitting on the school bus, and I just remember noticing. I honestly wasn't that old. This kid was maybe 1 or 2 years of my age, younger than me. But I remember he was a kindergartner, and he had the fourth book,
mm,
the Order of the Phoenix. Is that what it is? I
mm,
just remember how fat it was, and this kid was sitting there like absorbing this book, and I'm having this
mm,
moment, and I was like, I didn't learn how to read until the first grade. And here they're teaching them in kindergarten. Like, that's like, what? That's not
mm,
fair. But also, I think there's a lot worse things you could be doing than reading a book, you know?
mm, mm,
And I have read studies about this, my generation and the couple years in between me in particular, about
mm,
how I think Gen Z, like, they're the real they're the real game changers. They're the real geniuses. The generation right after me, I guess I'd be Gen Y.
mm,
J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter really sparked this huge, huge interest and desire for literature that
mm, mm,
is not being taken into account. Furthermore, something that I did find incredibly interesting is that I'm the oldest. There's 10 and a half years, almost 11 years between me and my youngest sibling, which is my baby sister, who's now
mm,
18, not a baby anymore,
mm,
always be my baby sister. She was reading Harry Potter during high school, and I was like, wait, what? And this is at her
mm,
Christian school.
mm,
So
mm,
it's almost like they realized, the value of having these kids pick up literature.
mhm,
Anyway,
mhm,
let me get off my soapbox. I think that that's a part of this that largely is not being taken into account with these book burnings, with yeah,
mm,
this desire to ban parts of history. Because I would also make the argument, and then I'm going to shut up, is that Harry Potter is also, like you said, so ingrained in our culture. It's quite literally a part of our history.
yeah, that's true
At
at
this
this
point.
point. Yep. Yeah. So let me just kind of introduce like how people are fighting back though, because that's kind of encouraging to me anyways. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, but before do I do that? Okay, so okay. Well, actually, let me just read the excerpts from this article, other parts too. The American Library Association reports an unprecedented uptick in book challenges that question a title. In 2020, there were 156, while in the last 3 months of 2021, there were over 330. The main battleground is school boards, especially those of middle schools, that community libraries are also impacted. Um, this widespread crusade is an organized effort from conservative groups like Parents Defending Education. That's a misnomer, right? But anyway,
Right.
Parents Defending Education, PDE, Moms for Liberty. Okay, what kind of liberty they're talking about? I don't know, but and No Left Turning Education. These astroturfs, so named because they are not real grassroots community groups, find a local supporter to take up the cause. Then they are supplied with templates for challenges, lists of books to target, and even sample speeches. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, right. Um,
So what you're saying is at this point we have like 400 banned titles.
yep.
And who's keeping this list? It's a conglomerate of these organizations, or who?
I think it sounds like a bunch of conservative groups. I don't think they are necessarily conglomerate, but I think they are very organized, so they keep like nationwide, I guess, network. I mean, you know, I guess they train people or whatever to campaign
Okay,
to ban books, I suppose.
so hear me out, right? Because we're both activists and organizers, and I'm just like, God, if you guys could just allocate those resources to like organizing in your community, and then we could all join forces and take over the people that are screwing us over. Like we could
mm,
have an American Revolution that would rival the French Revolution. Like instead, you guys are using that power to ban books.
yeah, I know.
Like, man, what if we could get the guillotines out? Like, come on, guys, let's kick out the elites, let's dump the incumbents. But no, we're gonna ban books
Right.
because that's the.
Yeah. So let me just okay. Before going to the encouraging parts of this article, let me just read the depressing parts first. Okay, at the time when LGBTQ plus folk and people of color are finally gaining some visibility and voice, making literature by and about them inaccessible is especially damaging. Young people in particular suffer from not seeing themselves in media depictions. This suppression also deprives youth of learning the history of marginalized communities and leads to a lack of empathy across differences. The American Library Association calls out removals for having a chilling effect on discussions of racism and gender issues, consequently increasing bullying and suicides. All right, so resistance. Across the country, young people are in the forefront of a vibrant fight back. Banned book clubs have popped up everywhere. Students protest outside their classrooms and testify at school board meetings. In Texas, one gay led club plans to rally at the state capitol. Demonstrations in Pennsylvania and Virginia prevented the removal of various works. In Georgia, the student learn organization Our Turn works to ensure the pupils can learn about racism regardless of banished material. Yay. Yeah, okay. So yeah, all over the country, I mean, high schoolers, young people, they're doing a remarkable job resisting this book bans. And parents, let's see, especially active librarians and teachers, they are defying attempts to limit the literature available in classes, braving hefty fines, firings, and criminal charges. The Unicorn Express, led by teachers and librarians, sends free LGBTQ plus titles by mail to youth living where bans have been enacted.
Oh, it makes me so
Wow.
happy to hear.
Thank you guys. Oh my God. Yeah, so anyway, I can like going on and on, but yeah, Freedom Socialist Press, I mean, um socialism.com, I guess. I don't know how they got that URL, but yeah, Freedom Socialist Party, uh search their website and they have a this newspaper section, and this is a very good article, talks about a lot of different resistance movement. So okay, shall we go to next topic?
So, the last topic that we wanted to talk about, kind of bringing it back to San Francisco, we need to do some stuff about LA too. There's lots of great stuff going on there too, Sukuru.
Yeah.
um, so there is a recall effort in place that I believe will be voted on in October of our district attorney, who is seen as one of the more progressive district attorneys in the entire country and has attracted the attention of, even John Legend recently expressed his support for Chesa, who I cannot say this about every politician in San Francisco, but who I have met personally. Both of us, Sukur and I, have
Mm,
met Chesa. And before we delve into this, I think it's important to I guess, kind of set the stage a bit, because given that we do have our own experiences with him, Chesa came out and spoke at the March for Medicare for All that Sucre and I co-organized back in July of 2021. Like, wow, I can't believe it's literally coming on a year.
yeah.
Granted, mind you, I think it's important to note also that I reached out to every single progressive leader in San Francisco and heard crickets. I'm not going to get into names because that's what Twitter's for. But and that's a whole like don't get me started on that. That's a whole other can of worms. But um we met, just to put it light, just to put it out there, we met with so much resistance and bullshit from different groups, but Chesa, district attorney, did come out and speak. And like Suku reminded me, he came with his wife who was pregnant at the
Yep.
time, which on a Saturday morning, which just was really
Hmm.
cool. And he did speak, for a minute. It wasn't like super rushed. And just, again, I can't say this for every politician in San Francisco, but a very, I felt, genuine guy, which, I get it, you can't say that about politicians, but just very friendly, very, very likable guy.
Hmm.
Um, a guy that I, again, will not say this about anyone, but I felt really like he's a nice guy, like he's a decent guy. If he's just playing the game, fine. But he did come out and speak. His actions speak louder than a lot of the words, which was the silence we heard from every other corner of the progressive establishment in San Francisco. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of set the stage for who this guy is, that our
Hmm.
personal experiences with him. But this past weekend, he sat down for an in-depth interview with the Examiner, if I'm not mistaken, and there were 7 different headlines, kind of explosive bits that the media is really trying to push. But I took the top 3 because I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding as far as the components of this entire recall election. And also, if you follow me on my platforms, you've noticed that I've largely stayed quiet about this because I'm somewhat in the middle. Not in the sense where I think we need to recall Chesa, because if there's anything that the data does show, it's that removing the district attorney is not the solution to what is going on in San Francisco. However, these 3 headlines that we decide that we're going to get into more in depth, I think it answers a lot of questions. But before, again, I get into this, I do want to say that I believe that San Francisco unfortunately has gotten unsafer, and
Mm.
we're not doing the right things to address the current reality. When you get to a point where, you know, car break-ins are literally just an eye roll, and you walk by so many, you know, different cars that put little signs in their windows like "Don't break in," you know, "There's nothing in here." And, you know, ask Sukuru. Again, I'm a tour guide. I literally freaking average 12 to 15 miles a day. So I feel like and it's pretty varied, the different neighborhoods that I work in. You know, I'm just,
Mm.
again, I get a decent sense of what's going on in different pockets of the city. And that one in particular, you know, car break-ins. But I myself have experienced LGBTQ
Mm.
harassment, you know, out on the streets. And I don't think enough is being done. And I don't to really address the victims' concerns. I think that they have turned this situation and purely into, oh, this is a Republican recall and we've got to remove the DA. And I don't think it's as white and black as that. So that's kind of the mentality and the thought process behind what we're about to unpack.
Mm.
Um, did you want to add anything, Sukru, before we get to the first headline?
No, let's just get to the meat of the story.
Okay. So well, number one, and again, I chose three of the ones that I feel just really explain a lot of this story that the media is doing a very poor job of explaining. So number one is that, you know, Chesa Boudin on tough on crime prosecutors, you know, and he claims, you know, that's not San Francisco. And the thing is, I agree with that, and I think that not enough people are realizing that we historically we don't want to be the city that throws the book at people. I believe, you know, um,
Mm.
we I would argue that our city. I think one thing that we probably can agree on is that we're not pro death penalty. Granted,
Mm.
I began this segment by saying that I don't necessarily have, you know, the greatest depth of experience with the district attorney's office. However, what I will say is that I'm comparing this to the other office that I did have somewhat experience with, which is now vice president's office, right? She was district attorney in San Francisco,
Mm.
and largely against the death penalty. And I am not in any way condoning Kamala's actions. I understand that she's a controversial figure. All of these people, you know, have done things to get where they are that
Mm.
have not been the best to communities of color and to working class individuals. However, I remember during Kamala's tenure as district attorney, many of
Mm.
my friends, like there was this running joke kind of that, oh, you go to San Francisco and commit your crimes because it's going to be a slap on the wrist by Kamala. Again, that's one opinion. I'm in no way trying to say that's, and again, that's just my opinion having grown up here. Um, and there was another time when there was a cop killer. This man, like, I believe he might have injured another one, but he shot a cop, like killed the cop.
Mm.
And Dianne Feinstein at this man's funeral called out Kamala in the audience and said, "You need to prosecute this guy. You need to give him the death penalty." You know, like the city was bloodthirsty.
Mm.
Every cop in attendance got to their feet and started clapping, and Kamala said, "No, I'm not. The death penalty's off the table." So I just wanted to say that, like, I agree with that statement that we're not this city that wants to throw the book at people. And
Mm. Mm.
I think people need to realize that. I think that really what is happening, and let's get to the next point is
Yeah.
out
Can I
of
say something though?
please,
So
please, please.
yeah. And also like not the violent crime, but like okay, so um, it is, you know, the theft, retail theft, and sort of like a somewhat organized retail theft, you know, happening in like drugstores and stuff like that, you know, like people like running in, get the goods and running out, and like, they really cannot do anything about it, stuff. So I've heard about that, from people in San Francisco and also in New York, right?
I've seen it
And
happen with my own two eyes more
yeah,
times than I want to count.
right, yeah, yeah. So there are a lot of opinions about that, but I feel like, as you were saying actually, Eric, before the show, there are things that should be done about, you know, uh, other than getting tough on crimes. Because, okay, so there may be like organized, theft groups that do that, but there are also people who do that out of need too.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this pandemic and because of the prolonged, recession and fuel prices and all that, and that's like really stressful for some people. I mean, a lot of people actually, and when you can't afford like diapers,
Mm-hmm.
formula, medicine, what are you gonna do? You just run out and like get what you need. And I mean, so I don't know, if removing DA uh provides solution to that. I don't, apparently not. So yeah, I just have a mixed feelings about, getting this speech about getting tough on crimes. But anyway, yeah, so that's all I want.
Which is the perfect intro to not quite the next point, but anyway, we'll get to this. So Chesa Boudin says it's dishonest his office gets so much criticism for turnover. So I'm glad that he addressed this point because everything from the vice president's office, they're highlighting that she's getting so much turnover. It's crazy how much similarities those two have right now. But it's bottom line is it's hard to keep people at work after coming up out of the pandemic and coming up under what is thankfully turning into a huge labor movement. But like I was talking with Sukuru earlier, um, turnover, right? It makes it seem as though there's a lot of people running his office. Well, that's not entirely true because his chief of staff is freaking running for state assembly.
Mm,
And I think that's what a lot of people are pointing to is that, like, oh, this person's leaving, that person's leaving. It's like, yeah, he had a couple people leave for sure, like most offices do, especially offices at that level. But his chief of staff actually never left. He took a leave of absence. He was also there at the march. Not the biggest fan of this guy, and I'm excited for him to lose his election tomorrow. But that's all I'm going to say about that because this is about Chesa, not David Sellout Campos. So anyway, just to address that point, but it's this last point that I really want to talk about
mm,
in the remaining time, and then we'll get to our community leader spotlight, which I know we've skipped for a couple weeks, but. Chesa Boudin says it's often the judges who order people released from jail. And that's a really,
mm,
even though it's a seemingly simplistic point, a lot of the hate and a lot of the accusations that Chesa is getting are come from this viewpoint that he's letting criminals off the hook,
mm,
right? That he's not keeping people locked up. One of the most controversial cases, and I think it's just a really I mean it's tragic, it's horrible, this is affecting people's lives. um right there in Rincon Hill, Soma-ish
mm,
neighborhood, there
mhm,
was a woman who was, I think two people were killed by a hit and run driver who, long story short, had no business being out on the road. Like, had it was previously convicted. And that's like the case that gets a lot of attention
mm,
in a lot of what they're pinning on Chesa. But I think it's very important to note that it's not Chesa's office that is, letting these people off the hook.
mm,
Actually, if you were to look at the conviction rate, he's actually convicting people at a higher rate than other offices, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty.
mm,
Um, but it's the judges who are ordering these people released from jail. You know, it's not him necessarily leaving these people off the hook. And granted, this is one that I in particular struggled with because moving back in these past 2 years, for the first time, I had my car broken into.
Hmm.
The rental that I was renting. I don't own a vehicle. I've mentioned that, I honestly, I don't even feel comfortable wearing a rainbow mask anymore because I don't want to attract any attention to myself. It's happened so many freaking god times.
Hmm.
Um, and the some unhoused people are in these really unfortunate mental health situations where it's not accurate to say that they don't pose somewhat of a threat to society and themselves, because they do, and I've seen it. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
um, I could literally, I'm trying to pick the avenue that I want to take with this because I don't want, we could talk about this for the rest of the day, but like just this last week, my friend who commutes into San Francisco from the East Bay, if you're familiar with San Francisco, one of the most popular ways of doing that would be through BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, and was late to work by 30 minutes, which, mind you, in the grand scheme of things, is a minor inconvenience. But what was the cause? Because people had jumped into the rails.
Oh God.
Now, right, which mind you, this was a more of, like I said, a minor inconvenience. These people were just, messing around on a whatever morning it was. However, I have had more than one case. I hate admitting this. I hate talking about this, where I have been late to a place or I have had my trade delayed because
Hmm.
somebody committed suicide by jumping into the rails. And it's actually like it happens a lot more than you
Oh
would think.
God.
And nobody talks about it.
That's so disheartening because that happens a lot in Tokyo.
Mhm.
Actually, I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
But
It's
wow.
yeah. And okay, so and the other point that I want to make is that for infinite number of reasons, San Francisco is always going to be a target. And people are going to come to San Francisco to commit their crimes. Why? Because there's so much money there. And there are people who don't have much to lose. They are in these
Mhm.
situations of, poverty. That's the real violence. Like, let's be honest, is
Yep.
that our government has,
Yep.
has just crunched us, and poverty is so, quite literally, it's a death toll to some people, to many
Yeah.
people. And when you get to the point where you just have nothing to lose, that you're going out there and committing, crimes because that's where your life has led you.
Mhm.
It really does. We have to, as a society, sit back and ask the question: are these tough on crimes, really doing anything,
No.
or are we not putting the attention in the right place? And
Mhm.
yeah, no, exactly. They don't look at homeless like humans, and they look like them like wild animals in the city that need to be removed and sent away, which is 100% right. And this whole love your brother BS. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not going to get off on a whole tangent, but I make a point to talk to at least a couple unhoused people a week throughout my day. And I'm not trying to say that I'm a saint for doing that. What I'm trying to say is that some of the experiences that I had last year really taught me and really showed me that,
Mhm.
like Jimmy was saying, we don't look at homeless, and every single one of those, like lots of them are veterans. A
Oh yeah.
lot
Oh
of
yeah.
them
Yep. We
are,
don't take care of them. We don't.
like,
You know.
like that is the biggest, like, that's a failure of our system, and
Yep.
there is no reason in hell a veteran should be sitting out on the street corner, like none,
Mhm.
not in the richest country on earth. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that, like, it's quite disgusting that any of us would choose to have the opinion where we look down on these people rather
Right.
than
You know.
raise all hell about the government that's causing
Mhm.
this, because that's
And I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest, because I speak for myself. You know, every one of us, okay, maybe not every one of us, not Elon Musk, not Jeff Bezos, but like you and me, and you know this, Eric, because you've experienced it too. We are this close to being homeless any day. I mean, I would be homeless right now. I would be homeless right now if a friend of mine who owns this place, was not going away to Japan temporarily and was able to rent this place to me at the reduced rent. I'll be on the street right now, you know,
Yeah,
being unemployed for 10 months last year. That's We are all this close to being homeless, people. But I think we stigmatize poverty in this country so much that we are not like calling calling out how wrong it is. You know, same thing as healthcare too. We teach people that like if you can't pay for your healthcare, that's your own fault.
and you should be ashamed, right?
Right. So that's why, like, I speak for myself too. I was ashamed for like number of years, forever, that I couldn't afford my dental care, right? You know, but it's not our damn fault. It's the system's fault, So we should be calling out and we should be speaking up and we should be taking our power back, you know.
Absolutely. 100, 100%.
So frustrating. Yeah, see.
I was I've never been in a place, thankfully, where I have been exposed to the elements, but I'll be completely honest. There were times where I was thinking like, okay, like I did the logistics of this as like I could literally buy a tent for less than $100, right? Maybe $70. Like if you find the right corner, dude, rent is and living is so
God.
expensive, right? And then here's the other thing: people are like, the shelters get full. The shelters get are, and also the shelters are not the safest places for,
No.
and especially if you're women or you have child or you
Right.
have a pet, all those different things, you know. Um, I've been incredibly fortunate to not have been in some of the situations that people in, but I think I've mentioned this story before. Like I have seen women in full faces of makeup, with professional attire, just get off of work and then go sit
Mm,
next to their tent. And like that's disgusting. That's absolutely it's inhumane, but also it's incredibly arcane, I think. It's just for all the advancements that we have in technology, for all the all we've done as a society and as human
mm,
beings, that's how we treat our own people. Because let's get this right. Let's not get it twisted. This is a choice. It's a choice,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to end in a really like depressing note, but I have to say it. Places like San Francisco, LA, and probably other places that I don't know about, it's getting to be too expensive to live. And I don't mean like make a living, but just like survive.
To survive,
you
right?
know it's like, and it makes you sorry to be depressing, but sometimes it makes you feel like, okay, it's like I'd be much better off then. Sorry. you know
No,
it's
I'm glad
depressing.
because if anything, maybe that we can end this on the note, maybe a call to action.
Yeah.
Maybe that we can spark something like how bad, ladies and gentlemen, do things have to get before we finally rise up? The viewers of this program tend to be more on the left side, and hopefully we can expand past and just really capture an audience that is ready to do something about
Mm,
this, because we don't have time. We're running
yeah.
out of time to really
Right.
figure this out and to
Yeah.
to get our
Yep.
power back.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Eric. That's 11 o'clock. But yeah, Eric's right. So yeah, it's encouraging. Starbucks, Amazon, workers are standing up. Not only like all high profile companies, but all over the country. Labor force, I mean, workers are striking, and they are actually getting somewhere. So that's encouraging. Etsy sellers
Right.
strike. Did the strike last week, so it's a movement, and the May Day is coming up. So wherever you are, just go out on the street and support workers, and express your outrage. So,
And your solidarity.
yep, yes,
Well, have a great week, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we will
yep.
see you next week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.